Welcome back to our series on great themes in Yetziat Mitzrayim. I'm here with Rav Bick, as always. And Rav Bick, it's hard to do a series without talking about Leil HaSeder, maybe the defining element of how we relive Yetziat Mitzrayim. But I think we take it so for granted that we don't realize there are a number of elements in Judaism that we're supposed to remember. We have Zechirat Yetziat Mitzrayim every day. We have recalling Amalek. We have recalling Ma'amad Har Sinai. The Ramban, whose Spanish name was?
That's
amazing.
It is amazing. What's amazing? That I know it, or that was his name?
The Ramban has Sheish Zechirot that we're supposed to remember every day. Yetziat Mitzrayim is the only mitzvah that has Sippur, that has a Leil HaSeder, that has show and tell, that has all the elements that we know and love about Leil HaSeder. The answer is, it's the most important one, so therefore we have to recall other things, but Yetziat Mitzrayim we have to invest in more, or is there something else going on here?
I don't know if it's the most important one. I mean, you could obviously make a case that Zechirat Har Sinai is surely extremely important, maybe more important, Zachor Tishkach. But I think it's the one where remembering is not enough. What we discussed in our previous discussions in this series, the idea of freedom is not merely being unobstructed or unconquered or unrestricted. Freedom is a state of being committed to being great, being committed to being Eved Hashem, to be committed to being close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I think the yesod of the Seder night is that people are naturally enslaved. People are, all Jews and all people are born into slavery and have to use enormous energy to be free. And if you do nothing, you will slide back into slavery. And therefore, the mitzvah of Sippur Yetziat Mitzrayim, as the way the Chazal understood, which isn't only talking, it's acting, it's recreating, as we say in the Haggadah. Adam tzarich lehorot et atzmo, lahavot v'lachon shel Rambam. Rambam says lahavot, to show himself, or lirot et atzmo, ki'ilu hu yatsa,
or hu
the Rambam, ata, right now, yatsa mitzrayim, is because we have to make ourselves free again. And that's very different than remembering. Remembering is to know certain very important things. You have to know that you came out of Mitzrayim. You should know that you owe God, etc., that you serve God. But here, the mitzvah of Pesach is to become free. You say, but we did that 4,000 years ago. Or we did it last year. The answer is, you've had a lot of time to slip back into routine, to slip back into merely doing mitzvahs that you were told to do, as well as doing other things. A person has to free himself all the time, and for that you need experience and not memory. The yesod of the Seder is experiential. You eat matzah because you eat morah to taste the slavery, and you eat matzah to taste, without going into the details, to taste the passage from slavery into freedom. You drink wine to experience freedom. There's a lot of eating being done. Why eating? We make fun of eating in Judaism, but the fact is that eating gets into your bones. In other words, it's when you're eating, that's what you are. The point is that you have to be free, not remember that you're free. If you remember that you're free, you're probably not free.
But is the goal to feel differently at different parts of the Seder? So at the beginning of the Seder, halach ma'anya, this is actually bread of affliction, and later on it's more geula?
For sure. Matchil b'genut, u'misayem b'shvach is not really a logical way to tell a story. It's that you should be in slavery. In order to experience freedom, you have to experience slavery first. So you have to experience the depths. What's the point of the Morah? The depths of the slavery, and then you experience the coming out, which is why there's a Hallel in the middle of the Seder, because we say Hallel when we got out. We're not saying Hallel because we remember that once. The Hallel, that's the Hallel for the morning. The Hallel at the night of the Seder is since now, like the Jews, when they saw Kriyat Yam Suf, they said Shira, when each individual person has mini experienced the actual exodus of his own existence, he bursts out into saying Hallel. So
that's the machlokas Beis Shammai Beis Hillel, whether you say one paragraph before the meal or two. Beis Shammai says, why would you say the second? B'tzeit Yisrael in Mitzrayim, we haven't left yet. It's not yet chatzot.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's exactly the point you're making, that they took so seriously that I'm recreating the experience, that I can't say B'tzeit Yisrael Mitzrayim until literally we had left Mitzrayim.
Mm-hmm. Maybe with a certain amount of experiential difficulty, but people who experience the Seder only gastronomically, in other words, they experience the bitterness of the Morah, and they experience the excitement of the wine, but they don't experience Mitzrayim and Geula and the way to Har Sinai, so they probably shouldn't say Hallel. They haven't experienced the Seder at all. They've experienced the excuse for the Seder. On the other hand, Chazal really believe, or the Torah really believes, that you can't experience it only in your mind, because then it's not an experience. It's not you. You haven't become free. You just remembered what freedom is. A person cannot free himself just by thinking about it. It has to be biyad chazaka, uvizro netuya. You have to actually be oved Hashem to become free. And that's why we have all these mitzvot, so many mitzvot, a lot of mitzvot for one night on the Leil Seder.
So Kol Shalom Ashlo Shadvarim Elu BePesach. That's the story. That's the eating of the Pesach matzah.
There's a machloket exactly what it means. Lo yatzah yedei chovato. The problematic part of the statement is the end. You haven't been yotzei at all, even though you ate. I think it's the opposite. It's saying that if you eat but you don't understand what you're doing, you're going to miss the point. So therefore you have to say when you eat, I'm not just, wow, interesting flavor, matzah, good matzah. Every year we discuss as to how bad the shmua matzahs are this year.
You too?
No, I've had good shmua matzahs for the last 3 years. I wrote down the guy's name and it comes pretty good. But I still be baking beforehand to make sure that they're fresh. But that's why he has to say, matzah zu shanu ochlim, because you're combining an experience with meaning. Meaning without the experience is sort of in your head, but not your existence. Doing it, presumably you could actually experience it without understanding it, but probably not. So therefore, lo yatzah yidei chovato, the standard pshat is lo yatzah legamrei. He doesn't have a full understanding because he doesn't have a full fulfillment, because he doesn't have a full understanding. So we have to wed our minds to our, in this case, our stomachs. We have to wed our minds to our living experience in order that it should be a living experience. That we should actually be marching out of Mitzrayim at those seconds.
I assume all this sort of forces us to actually prepare before the Seder, right? The experience is not just going to come on its own. I feel like the challenge you're giving us is that in advance of the Seder, I have to think about how I should feel. I should think about what these passages mean to me, what the experience means to me.
If routine is the enemy of freedom, then having a Seder every year is potentially inimical to the experience of the Seder itself, because we get into the routine. We did what we did last year.
Is that true?
It's potentially...
The routine is the...
Routine is often the enemy of freedom, even though, as we've said already a number of times here, the routine in Avodat, being Oved Hashem, is also the key to freedom. So there's a certain difficult, what's called by Chazal, mitzvot anashim melumada. If you've done a Seder for a couple of times, at my age, more than 10 times, so the danger of just, okay, let's do Kadesh Uchatz, what are those other words? You sing it and you just flow through it and one leads to the other. I think Chazal wanted it to be that way, because it has to be a real experience. But you have to make sure that you're actually walking and not being dragged.
All right. A lot to think about, a lot to experience. Shkoach. Thanks.
Kol tov.